Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Dinenberg, and today my new review is for the TV show Space Force, Netflix original, created by Greg Daniels, who created The Office and Parks and Recreation, as well as written by and created by our lead here, Steve Carell. The movie just came out on this past Friday. It's a 10-episode, 30 to 35-minute comedic series on Netflix that just premiered season 1 on Friday. The series stars Steve Carell, John Malkovich, Ben Schwartz, Lisa Kudrow, Noah Emmerich, Patrick Warburton, Jane Lynch, Diane Silver, Jimmy O. Yang, Timmy Newsom, and a lot more people that I'm probably missing right now, but this is a pretty stacked cast. Before I start this review, have you seen Space Force? If you have, leave your thoughts about Space Force down below in the comment section. If you haven't seen Space Force, are you excited for Space Force? Tell me why you're excited for Space Force in the comment section down below. So let's get started. I was really excited for the show. The trailers really sold me. I'm a huge fan of both The Office and Parks and Recreation. So I was really pumped to see Greg Daniels reunite with Michael Scott here, Steve Carell, obviously one of the best working actors, comedic, and really, in my opinion, in general, in the biz. John Malkovich as well has shown that he's been in a lot of busy Netflix original movies the past couple of years. So I was excited to see him back in another Netflix type of show. Ben Schwartz, this cast is really great, and that is the stars of the show. This show is really well acted across the board. Obviously, Steve Carell in the lead as Mark Naird is really good. So the show, before I get into my positives, negatives, and then my score, guys, the show is about Mark Naird, played by Steve Carell, who now is part of the Air Force, is tasked on to being the head of the 6th branch of the United States Armed Forces, and that is Space Force. And he is supposed to be able to do this moon habitat with his head scientist, John Malkovich. And Steve Carell has to run this against other countries who are trying to beat the United States to the punch, which are Russia and China. And they're the main villains of the show. Back to my original point, the cast is really strong here. Steve Carell knocks it out of the park once again, and he's not Michael Scott. So what I would say already off the bat is that if you're expecting a type of Office, Parks and Rec show, it's not. It's a very theatrical TV show. I mean, it has a great budget because we are going to space. And the film is not a documentary based on this. This is actual happening stuff. So Steve Carell as the lead and Mark Naird is really good, really funny, but you're also caring not just because Mark Naird is played by Steve Carell, you're rooting for Mark Naird because it's Mark Naird, which is really a thing I was worried about heading in. The strongest character, in my opinion, in the show, and my favorite performance in the show is my guy right up here, John Malkovich, as the head scientist of Space Force. He's basically Steve Carell's number 2, who basically makes all of the huge decisions, really all the big creations for Space Force. Steve Carell not in tune with space and stuff, so he really relies on Malkovich to run the show for the most part, and he has some because obviously John Malkovich has that sarcasm, and him and Steve Carell are the 2 leads, and they have unbelievable chemistry in the show. While Steve Carell's trying to make jokes and not taking things seriously, John Malkovich is being sarcastic. While he can make jokes once in a while, he also is taking this very seriously because his job is on the line of his life's work. So you really feel that he's under a lot of scrutiny and pressure, while the head of Space Force isn't really going to be losing anything anytime soon. The person right here, Ben Schwartz, who is known from Parks and Rec and just voiced Sonic in Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a movie that came out earlier this year. I'm a huge fan of him, and while he wasn't great in the earlier episodes, the last, I would say, 3 episodes, he knocks out of the park and became one of my favorite characters in the show. Ben Schwartz basically plays the media head for Space Force for Mark Naird, and he kind of becomes a very annoying character. I think in like the 4th or 5th episode, once they let him do his own storylines, it really picks up and he becomes a lot funnier. And Ben Schwartz is always just super funny to watch on screen. Another standout is Diane Silver. She plays Steve Carell's daughter here. I saw her in a huge role in Booksmart last year. I love that movie, and she was good. But she gets her biggest role yet in her career here in this film in this show, I mean, and she knocks out of the park. She has a great relationship with Steve Carell. I think they missed a couple messages that could have gone through to her character in particular, but in general, she is really good, and you really feel like she's not gaining enough time with her dad, played by Steve Carell. Now, the story is very unique, obviously. The Space Force thing, this is very much a parody of the current administration, how Trump did announce Space Force. This is all a bunch of parody, and they reference POTUS, the President of the United States, a lot, even though they're basically referencing that it is Trump, but there's no Trump in the show. So if you like that type of stuff, this is definitely a show for you as well. The show does fly by really fast. Obviously, the 30-minute episodes, but they really do. And each episode, which I like about the show, stands on its own. They're not complete continuations. Obviously, the characters are evolving, but each episode has a completely different story going for it, which could be an issue for some people. And for me, I actually enjoyed that. Now let's get into my issues about the show. Two characters for me didn't really make a lot of sense and took me out of a lot of scenes. First one is Noah Emmerich, who I really like Noah Emmerich. And he's basically the head of Air Force who really wanted to take over Space Force, but they gave it to Mark Naird, and they have a huge rivalry. His jokes about making fun of Steve Carell never worked for me. And I don't know if the script thinks the script isn't that great for him or the performance of Noah Emmerich isn't great, but I can't tell which it was because the character itself felt completely meaningless. And I feel like we already had Steve Carell already had enough issues to worry about than just another stereotypical Air Force guy who wants the control of Space Force because Mark Naird sucks, I guess, in his opinion. The character didn't work. There's one episode truly about the rivalry between Steve Carell and Noah Emmerich. And I thought that was one of the weaker episodes of the show. Now, that was the strongest episode, one of the stronger episodes of the relationship between Malkovich and Carell. It got in the way at times of the Carell versus Emmerich storyline, and that for me never worked. As well, Lisa Kudrow, who, by the way, is really good here in the show. Her character isn't that great. I'm not going to reveal anything. This is a non-spoiler review, but her character goes into a very weird direction after the first episode, and it basically changes the whole show and the relationship between Steve Carell and Diane Silvers, and it doesn't really make any sense. We never get explained why she did this, why she's in this position. We keep going back to her once or twice an episode, but she is a very weird storyline, and at times it takes me out of the movie, of the show. I'm very sorry. But in general, also another issue that I think some people are going to have with the show that I didn't because I had to breeze by for this review, but for people in general who just want to binge something, this show for me doesn't seem bingeable. For example, I watched a show called Dead to Me, and every end of the episode in Dead to Me, there's a cliffhanger that makes you want to click that next episode button. With Space Force, it doesn't, again, as I told you earlier, which I thought was a positive, but also is a negative at times, is the fact that after the episode ends, it doesn't feel like you have enough energy to click that next episode. They're not leaving you on a cliffhanger. They're resolving every issue in each episode. This show, though, as it seems, looks like it is completely built for multiple seasons, especially the last episode, which feels like complete setup for a possible season 2. I expect we're going to get season 2, especially if this entire cast and if Carell and Daniels agree to write the second season and continue being the creators of the show. Feels like there's no way Netflix can say no, even though this show is getting very mixed reviews. It's around like 53% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not getting amazing reviews, but the show is so watchable because of this cast. Now, I actually like it a lot more than other people. I'm not at that point of loving the show. I think that this show has potential to be very special, though, down the lines in seasons 2 and 3, I think, could really elevate on what season 1 has started. Because I really bought into all these characters, not just because they're played by these very famous actors, but because these are great characters, some great relationships. But I think the show just couldn't capitalize on just trying to start a building point. The show needs a couple of seasons under its belt for us to fully review the show. So for me, I gave it a 3.5. It's a 75%. I think it's an extremely solid show, a great watch during quarantine. But overall, I think Space Force is going to become a really great show once we especially get into a season 2 and possibly a season 3. The cast is watchable. The story is good. The jokes, I belly laughed once or twice an episode, which is a huge plus, but some characters do get in the way and some storylines don't always click in the show. I want to thank you guys for joining me once again. You can find me, my social media, you'll find it right in the description below on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can also find me on the $1 Million Podcast. If you go to podbean.com and search in the search bar, $1 Million Podcast, one word. I have a podcast where I talk with my friend Dylan Dayton about sports, movies, and wrestling. If you're into any of those things, I highly recommend the $1 Million Podcast. I'm going to keep posting because obviously movies are not coming out as much anymore. I'm going to post whatever shows I watch as well. This will also go on this channel just like I did Defending Jacob on my last video, and just like this video, another show, Space Force. I highly recommend the show if you're into any of these actors especially. Thank you so much for joining me. Once again, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Tell me your thoughts. Did you agree with my thoughts on Space Force? Have you seen Space Force? If you have, tell me your thoughts on Space Force, non-spoiler fashion down below. If you want me to go in deeper into a spoiler review of Space Force, you got to let me know in the comments section or to DM me. Those are the only two ways I can get myself to do another video of Space Force. Thank you guys so much for joining me. My name is Max Stenenberg, and I'll see you on the next video.